Hello and welcome to the Data Idols Summer School. It's something we've been working on for a long time now, and it's really great to have it out there for people to be joining. I'm David Lachlan. I'm the founder at Data Idols. I spent a good part of my early career working in data, working as a data engineer. I've always been very active in the data community, and as I say, now I'm a co-organizer at the Data Science Festival. In terms of the summer school, it's, as I say, something we've been working on for a while, and it's a series of content that's aimed to give people a really good grounding in all areas of data. It's a free resource, can be accessed in real time or can be accessed on demand from September onwards. If you are accessing it in real time, please do check out the Slack channel. We've got a channel there in our community where people that are doing the course can connect, ask questions, communicate, and get to know each other while they're doing the course. In terms of what it covers, all of the key areas of data, so introductions to all of the key concepts, key technologies, building on it from there, machine learning, data engineering, and also visualization as well. We've worked really hard. I've recorded this intro a couple of times now, and I mention it every single time. All of the companies that you see on the screen in front of you now have been a key part of pulling all of this content together. We absolutely could not have done it without the forward-thinking support of these organisations. Really do appreciate it. And I think we've worked out it's probably about 400 hours worth of work to pull all of this together for you. So I hope you enjoy it. In terms of today's session, really pleased to be joined by Deji Olayinka. He is from Mars Petcare and is providing us with an introduction to Excel. Really hope you enjoy it and see you all soon.
Hello, welcome to this session of an introduction to Excel. My name is Deji Olayinka, and I'll be leading this session. Throughout it, I'm basically going to be showing you some of the cool features that Excel has for bringing in data, cleaning that data, and also running some quick analysis on it. And this session will show you some of the main tools that you can use for bringing in data, as well as a lot of the functions that you might use if you were to run a quick analysis using Excel. So to start with, I'm going to bring in my data using the data wizard that they have in Excel. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on this data tab, which you can see in the top left over here. Now, there are a number of different methods to bring in data, which you can see in this get data option here. The file that I'm bringing in will be a CSV file, so I'm just going to click from file and then from text/CSV. It's going to take a little while to load, but basically what will pop up is an option for me to choose where my data is going to come from. So what I've got is this monster.com job sample, and I got this from Kaggle. It's basically data that had been scraped from monster.com, which is a job website, which is all the data is from America, and it's quite dirty data because it's been scraped using web scraping. So I'm going to spend some time cleaning it before we get to do the analysis in the end. What you can see is popped up here is the data wizard tool, and what you can see is basically the first few rows and all the different columns and all the different data within these rows. Now, the first thing that I go to check is that the data looks like it's been properly separated. And there's an option here, which is a delimiter, and that basically the character that's used to separate the different rows. Now, Excel automatically predicts what it is by just looking at the data, and it already knows that it's comma separated. But if you were to have data that was separated using a different symbol or a different method, then you'd be able to select one of these options or create your custom one. You can also choose how Excel predicts a data type. It can either be based on the first 200 rows, the entire data set, or you can choose not to detect any data types rather. And it also interprets where the data came from, and that would slightly change the way that the data is parsed. So as you can see, it looks like most of the columns have relevant data in them, and it seems pretty well separated. So what I'm going to do is I could either click the load button, in which case the data would immediately load into the spreadsheet. But instead, I'm going to click this transform data button here, which will allow me to run some quick transformations on the data before I actually bring it into Excel. It's just popped up on my other screen here, so I'll just quickly grab that. But this transform data tool is called Power Query Editor, and basically it allows you to run some quick transformations on the data before you bring it into Excel. It's quite a new tool, so it's not available on all versions of Excel, so I won't spend too much time on it. But I do want to show off some of the cool features. So the first thing you might have noticed is that the first row contains the column headers. So immediately I'm just going to click this button up here in the ribbon, which says use first row as headers. And this will change the column names from column 1 to column 7 into the actual headers that we've got in the CSV file. So I just click that button and you can see the steps that have been applied there. Now that that step's been completed, you can see that the column headers have changed, and I can scroll through the data and you can see it's worked on every single column. I'm going to do one more transformation before I bring the data into Excel properly, and that is basically converting the data type of one of these columns, and I'm just going to show you how that can be done. So what I want to do really is turn this has expired column into a true/false column. At the moment it says no or yes. So what I'm going to need to do is first of all replace all the values so that it's either true or false. And to do that, I'm going to click on the no here and click this replace values button. And what this will do is it'll bring up an option where I can, first of all, it tells me the value that I want to find and replace within this column, and I can type in what I want to replace it with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in false for no, and there are also some advanced options. There's an option to match the entire cell's contents, which means if I was to tick that, it would only replace the value where the entire cell says no, rather than replacing a subset of the cell. So for instance, if it was to say no, thank you, then without this ticked, then it would replace the no with a false. But with this ticked, it wouldn't replace the no at all. And I can also replace using special characters by inserting some special characters, but I'm not going to use any of those options. I'm just going to click OK and replace no with the false value. Sweet. And I'm also going to replace yes with a true value. So I'm going to type true into here, click OK. And what you might have noticed is that at the top here, you can see where it says ABC. That's a sign that this is a text field. So although I've only got true and false in here, the data type has still stayed as text. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the data type by clicking this data type button at the top here and clicking true and false. And you can see the range of data types that Excel can handle. But I want true and false. I'm just going to click that. There we go. Now I'm just going to click close and load and bring in all this lovely data. Now what it's going to do is it's going to bring in the data as a table, and that table will be directly connected to the source file, which you can see here on the right. It says queries and connections, and that's showing that it's directly connected to that CSV file. There are 22,000 rows, and I can get a quick preview of that data if it loads. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to rename this worksheet to raw data, just so that I know that this spreadsheet here has all the raw data in it. I can quickly flick through the data again, get an idea of the data. But because there are 22,000 rows, I won't actually get a good, clear understanding of all the data by just flicking through it. It'll take a long time. So what I want to do is I want to, first of all, get the unique values from all of the rows and also get a few counts of, say, the number of null values in each of the columns and the number of unique values in each of the columns. So I'm going to do that in this next sheet here. And to help me keep track of all of the columns and what all the numbers mean, I'm going to copy and paste all of the column titles into that sheet. And to do that, I could click this button 1 here. And what that would do is basically select the entire row all the way down to the end of the worksheet. But instead of doing that, I'm going to click on the cell A1, press Control, Shift, and right, and that will automatically select all of the cells that have been filled in until the next blank to the right. Throughout this demonstration, I'm going to be doing quite a few shortcuts like this. I would recommend that if you aren't familiar with Excel, that you try and watch or learn about Excel, some of the basics, because I will really be focusing on the ways that we can use Excel to clean and analyze data rather than some of the basics of Excel. But I will every now and again show you useful tips and tricks like that, just to make sure that you're aware of what I'm doing and I don't go too fast. So I'm going to select it again. So click on that cell A1, press Control, Shift, and right. And there I've selected all of the columns or all the column names. I'm going to click on sheet 1. And here I'm just going to copy and paste, Control and V, Control and V to paste and Control and C to copy. I'm going to copy and paste all of those column titles. As you can see, you can't actually properly see all the column titles. So I'm just going to click the B and hold Shift and then click the O column to select all of the columns. And I want to resize the columns so that I can see all of the data in them. So I'm just going to double tap that. And there we go. It's resized all of the columns so that I can see all the titles quite easily. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get a list of all of the unique values within this raw data table for each of the columns. Now, as part of that, I'm going to use a function and formula to get that. But the first thing I want to do is rename this table so that I can easily reference it quite quickly. And to rename tables, all you have to do is click this table design button once you've already clicked into the table. So I'm in the table, I can click this table design button, and in the top left, I can click this table name button and rename the table from monster.com job sample to raw. And that's just going to be the name of the table, and I'm going to be able to reference that to let me know that yeah, I want to collect it. I want to collect any information from this raw table. Okay, so I'm going to write a function to collect all the unique values from the country column in the raw data table. And to write any formula, first of all, you have to start off with an equal sign, and that'll let Excel know that you want to write a formula. And the function I'm going to be using is the unique function. So I'm just going to type unique. And as you can see, it's already tried to autofill the function for me. All functions in Excel are in capital letters as well. So just make sure that you write it in capital letters. And to begin to complete the function, I need to open up a bracket, and inside this bracket I can put in any variables that are in this function. So to begin with, what I want to get is a list of all the unique values in the country column in that raw table. And here you can see the first variable that I can put into this unique function is an array. And this array is basically all the data that I want to get the unique items from. So here I can type in unique. I've typed in unique, opened up the brackets, and I can start to type in the array. So the array I want is going to be from the table. So I'm going to type in the table name, which is raw. Here you can see the little table icon. Then I'm going to put square brackets in to select the column that I want to use, which is a country column. And I'm going to close off the square brackets. And you can see that there are some extra expressions I can put into this function. The by col expression and the exactly once expression, but because those are in square brackets, I know that I don't need to fill them in. They're just optional variables, so I'm just going to close the brackets. And there I have the only unique item in this country column, which is the United States of America. And that makes sense because this data is only based on US data. Now to expand this formula and bring it and get the same list of unique items for each of the other columns, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this small green square in the bottom right of the cell and drag it across. And what that does is it basically autofills all of these cells with the exact same function. But the smart part about it is that it automatically picks the next column along every time you drag along an extra cell. So automatically it's got the country code in here, the date added, and so on. So now that I've got a list of all the unique values, I can actually start to have a better look at the data. So I'm just gonna stretch it out a little bit so that I can see just what's inside. And straight away, I can see that in this date added column, there's actually a null value. in this job type column, I can see there are multiple different ways that they've entered in a job that's just full-time. So it could be full-time employee, full-time, or full-time comma employee. And if I wanted to do some analysis on this column, then what I'd want to do is clean it up so that I only have one value that indicates whether a job type is full-time. In the location column as well, I can see that there are quite a few different options. Some of the locations have the zip code, some don't, some have the state, some don't, but most of them have the city. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and isolate the city here. And you can see across the other cells as well, there is some more clean data in the page URL and in the organization column. And the salary column appears to have a mixture of ranges. So some of them are hourly wages, while other ones are yearly salaries. And if I wanted to do any analysis on those numbers, then I'd want to make sure I'm using the same units and I'm doing a consistent calculation across those same units. Before I start cleaning, the next bit of analysis that I'm going to start to do is just get a count of the number of unique values in each column and a count of the number of null values in each column. And to do that, I'm going to use more formulas. So first of all, I'm going to get a count of the number of null values. So count null. And going to type in the formula here. So again, all formulas, you start off with an equals, and I'm going to use a count blank formula, count blank function to count the number of nulls in these particular columns in the raw data tab and raw data table. So here I've entered in the count blank function, and the first variable that it wants me to put in is a range, and that's basically the data that I want to do a count on. So I'm going to type in raw because that's the table that I want to do it on, and in square brackets I'm going to select the country that I want, and I'm going to close off the square brackets and close off the round brackets, and there I've got a count of all the nulls in this country column. There are 0, and again I'm going to click the green square in the bottom right and just drag across to autofill the count for all of the different columns. Immediately I can see that while some columns have like no nulls at all, other columns like this date added column have over 2,100 or 21,000 nulls. And in a data set of 22,000 entries, it's quite clear that this column is almost useless. If I did want to do some analysis on this column, then I'd only have like 100 or so entries to actually look at. As well as looking at the count of the nulls, to get an idea of the data, I'm going to look at the count of the number of unique values. So like just from looking at it, I can see that the country and the country code only have one unique value, and the has expired column has 2 unique values. But for these other columns, there are quite a few entries, and it just wouldn't make sense for me to manually check. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name this the count of the unique values. And I'm going to use a function. I'm going to use a function called count A, which counts the number of cells in a range that aren't empty. And here I'm meant to put in the values that I want to do a count on. So I'm going to use a nested function here. So on the outside, fundamentally, I want to get the count of the number of unique values. But on the inside, I want to get the values that I want to do that count on. And so to do that, I'm going to use a unique function again. So typing in unique, opening up the brackets, and I'm going to put in the table name again, which is raw, and the column, which is country. And now I should get a count of the number of unique values in this country column for this within the raw table. I'm going to click and drag across again to autofill. And now I've got a better idea of the type of data I have and basically the distribution of the data. So immediately I know that this country column and the country code column and the job board column are practically useless because they only have one unique value in them. This job type column has 40 unique values, and you could probably get a lot less by doing some cleaning on it. And so this would be a good column to do some kind of grouping and to run some analysis on, say, the average salary for a full-time employee or the average salary for a part-time employee and so on. Similarly, you can look at the other numbers and say, okay, it's clear that the unique ID is actually unique, which is a relief. And you might notice that the page URL the page URL column isn't actually unique. There seem to be two entries, at least with the same unique value. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to clean up the data so that I can run some analysis on it. And again, looking at the data, if I wanted to do some kind of language analysis, I'd want to clean out all these weird symbols in the job description column, and also any kind of weird symbols in the job title column, which you can see here. What I'm actually going to do is an analysis on the salaries in this data, and I really want to compare the salaries across different cities and the general salary count. So to do that, I'm going to have to extract the city from this location column, and also extract the yearly salaries from this salary column. So to do that, I'm going to open up another sheet. I'm going to call this clean data sheet, and I will copy and paste all of the data from the raw table into that clean data spreadsheet. So I used a very cool shortcut here where I clicked on the cell A1, press Control and A to select all of the data within this table, and then I press Control and C to copy all of that data. And now if I click on the Clean Data tab, I can just press Control and V to paste in all of the data that was in there. This will take some time because there's a lot of data in this table. Normally doesn't take this long. Okay, so now that we've got all the data into this clean data spreadsheet or worksheet, I'm going to rename this table by clicking on table design in the top right and table name, and I'm going to call this cleaned. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the columns that I think are useless, which are this country column, the country ID column, and the jobs board column. Then I'm going to expand out some of these other columns so I can start to look at them. There we go. So the first bit of cleaning I'm going to do is I want to extract the city from this location column. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a new column in between the location and the organization here by right-clicking on the G and clicking insert. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a formula here that will extract the city from this location column. And what I've noticed is that the city is always to the left of this comma. So the first part of extracting the city is identifying exactly where this comma is. So to do that, I'm going to use the find function. So I'm going to type equals find, open brackets. And the first variable I've got to put in is the text. Is the text that I want to find, which is a comma. So in quote marks, I'm going to type quote, comma, quote. And then the next variable is where I want to look for that text, and that's in this location cell. So what I'm going to do is just click on the location cell in the same row, and automatically it's filled in this this location cell and this location column variable. And it's in square brackets, it's in blue. You can tell it's very different from all the other variables that I've put in. And that basically acts as a permanent sign within this table to say whatever row you're on, get the location, the value in the location column. There's another option to have the start number, but again, it's in square brackets, so I'm just going to ignore it because I don't need it. And what this function will do is it'll identify exactly where the comma is in all of these locations. There we go. You can see that the comma is the 8th value. I'm going to rename this to just comma. And now that I know where the comma is in each of these locations, I can start to split the location cell based off where that comma is. So I'm going to insert another column in here, and I'm going to get this city from this column. In this column, and what I'll do is I'll type equals to get the formula, and I'm going to use the left function. Now the left function basically collects all of the a certain number of characters from the start of a string, of a text string, up until you specify, and there's also a write function which does the exact same but in the other direction. So it collects all of the text up until the nth character in a string, but from the right moving inwards rather than from the left moving inwards. So here I'm going to put in the text that I want to select, which is a location, and the number of characters I want to pull from the left, which will be basically everything before the comma. So I'm going to click on this comma, comma cell, and type -1 so that I get everything just before the comma. And straight away you can see all of the cities that were in this this column. Now, besides that, I also want to get the salary, and what I want to do is I just want to get the lowest salary from each of these rows. So the ones where it's got basically where it's got a range, I don't want to get the highest salary. I want to get the lower one, and I want to make sure that it's a yearly salary rather than an hourly wage. And to do that, I'm going to insert a column into here. And the first thing I want to do is check whether it is a salary or not. So I'm going to call this column is salary. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to search in this text for the term year. And if it does contain year, then I know that it's a yearly salary. So to do that, I'm going to use two functions. I'm going to use the search function and the isNumber function. So I'm going to search equals isNumber. And what this does is it will return true or false if there is a number within the value that you put in there. And so what I want to do is I want to get a number whenever there's a year or an hour within this salary column. And to do that, I use the search function, which returns a number which indicates basically the location of the year or whatever variable I am searching for. So isNumber, and within that I'm using the search function, and the within the search function, the structure of it is that I put the text that I want to find first, which is the year, and then I can put where I want to find that text, which is this salary column. And if I just press enter, automatically now I've got trues and falses indicating whether the salary column has a year in it. Now, besides getting the units and making sure that everything I have is a salary, I also want to get the actual salary value. And to do that, I'm going to split this salary across the dash, and I'm going to get the lower end of the salary. And the reason why I'm going for the lower end is because, one, it'll be easier for me to identify that by just doing a quick split across the dash. But also, because I, as a data expert, or as a wannabe data expert, I'm saying that the upper end of the salary might actually not be representative of the true salary. I think that the companies that are posting these jobs might have inflated job figures at the upper end just because they want to be in some of the larger search ranges that people put in. So what I'm going to do to get the lower end of the salary is I'm going to put in a formula that will basically split this salary column on the dash and get the number before it. So to do that, I'm going to type equals left. So this will be very similar to what I've done earlier. So equals left, I'm going to select the salary, and then I want to decide exactly where I want to split it. And to do that, I'm just going to use the find function to find a dash. I want to find a dash within this salary. And what I also want to make sure of is that I get all the text to the left of the dash and not just the dash, and not include the dash. So I'm going to put a -1 in there and close it up. So here I've got the salary, the lower end of the salary for all the data where there's a pay range. Now, what you can see is there are quite a few error messages, and those are in cases where there isn't a dash, so it's just returned an error. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up this data in 2 stages. The first is to return basically an empty string if there is an error, and the second stage is to convert these numbers into actual numbers so that I can run like numeric analysis on them. Because at the moment, they're just strings which have been pulled from other strings. So to ignore the errors, I'm going to use this if error function. So if error, then the value that I want to put in is this column here. And the value, if there is an error, is a quote, just an empty symbol. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make another nested formula with functions within functions. And instead of just adding in another column, what I'm going to do is convert the salary here into a number before I do the error checking. So within this if error function, I'm going to use the number value function. And what this function does is convert text to a number. So number value, and I'm literally just going to put that column into the brackets. And there we go. We've got it in the number format rather than in the text format. And I can start to run some analysis on these salaries. I call the column salary clean. Okay, now I've got a clean salary and a clean list of cities. It's not the 100% clean, but it's good enough for me to do some quick analysis in this short period of time. What you'll find is sometimes you get really clean data and you won't actually need to do this kind of heavy cleaning. And other times, particularly with web scraping, you'll get quite messy data. And if you want to get some quick analysis, you'll just do some short cleaning, and you'll just have to accept a bit of messiness in the data and then just move on from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another worksheet, and I'm going to call this analysis. And in this worksheet, I'm going to start to get some general analysis and a city by city analysis. So I'm going to move a little bit quicker through these functions, just because I feel like you've already got an idea of functions and how they work. And there's a solid range of functions that you can use for analysis. And really, when it comes down to it, you'll be doing a lot of Googling to work out what exactly can fulfill whatever need that you have. So yeah, I'm going to do some general analysis first. And some of the statistics that I'm interested in are the number of jobs, the number of yearly salaries that are available, the maximum wage, and maybe some other information around the yearly wages or yearly salaries. So first thing we're going to get is job count. And to do that, I'm just going to use that count A function again. And I'm going to go to the clean table and do a count on the number of unique IDs within that clean table. Oops. Yep, there are 22,000, just like I thought there was at the beginning. And I also want a count of the number of yearly salaries within this table. Now I'm just going to go back and check what I named that column. So what I've got here is the is salary column, and that's a Boolean with true and false, indicating whether the salary is a yearly figure or whether it's not. So I'm going to use the countifs function, and what this function allows you to do is count the number of cells that meet a certain condition. So countif, and the range that I want to count is within this clean table. Oops. Within this clean table, I want to count the number of times that is salary is true. So the second part of the criteria, I'm going to say true. And you've got to put it in capital letters because it's a logical value rather than a string or some other type of expression being used here. I just close up that bracket, and I got a quick count of the yearly salary. It's a small amount, it's about 10% of the data, but that'll be enough for us to do some analysis. As well as getting the count of yearly salaries, I want to see what the maximum yearly salary or wage is. So I'm just going to type max salary / wage. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some max function. And I'm going to look into the cleaned table, and I'm going to search in the clean salary column and find out what their maximum salary or wage is. You can see it's like £850,000. I need to find that job. To format the data in a cell, you can use this numbers tab here, I'm going to add some commas in so I can see the proper salary. And you can also play around with the number of decimal points if you want. But yeah, that's a healthy wage. So as well as looking at the maximum salary or wage, I'm gonna see if I can get the average yearly wage and the maximum yearly wage. So I'll start off with the maximum yearly wage. And here I just use the max function, but here I'm gonna use the max if function, which allows you to add a number of criteria to basically choose exactly what you want to find the maximum of. And what I want to find the maximum of is a cleaned salary, which is here. And that's the first variable I have to input. And the criteria that I want to check is I want to make sure that, first of all, really I want to make sure that it's actually a yearly salary rather than what do you call it, an hourly one. So again, cleaned, and I'm going to check the Boolean column, and I want that to be true. And of course, the maximum yearly wage or yearly salary is exactly the same as the maximum hourly salary, or the maximum hourly and yearly salaries, because yearly salaries are a lot bigger than hourly ones. I also want to look at the average yearly salary. So here I'm just going to get up the average, and I'm going to use the average ifs function. And the reason why I'm using the average if function is because I want to add the same type of conditions that I added in here. So really, I just want to do the average if of the cleaned salary. And I also want to do, I also want to make sure that it's a yearly salary rather than a wage. So I'm going to add the condition that the column in the table is actually salary, and make sure that the value in that column is true. Oops. I've missed something out here. Criteria, average range. Oh, I've done it in the wrong order. So one of the things that you'll notice when you use the average if and the average ifs function is that the order in which you put in the variables changes. So here I was meant to put in the criteria range first and the criteria second, which would look like this. And then that would work. But if I was to use the average ifs function, then the first variable should be the average range, and then the criterias come after. And that always trips me up, and it'll probably always trip you up as well. So yeah, you get the same thing, but you put the variables in different orders. Sweet. So that's a general analysis of all the numbers, but I want to do a city by city analysis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in an extra condition. Actually, first thing I'm going to do is drag this away to the side here. And what I want to do is do an analysis on the city of Monroe. And I want to get the job count, the yearly salary count, minimum yearly salary, maximum, and the average yearly salary, actually, that's more interested. So I've already done these, so I'm going to run through them quite quickly. But for all of these, I'm going to have to add in an extra if condition. So I'm going to have to use the count ifs. And what I want to make sure is that the city column, it's cleaned city, the city column is actually Monroe, which you can see here. So I'm just going to click on that cell, and it'll make sure that the city is whatever's in the cell A4. For the yearly salary count, I want to run another countifs function, and I want to make sure that the first of all, that the column of is salary, cleaned is salary is true. And I also want to make sure that the city is a correct one. So I'm going to say, so for the second criteria, the city should be Monroe. Okay, so I've got 4 salaries in there. And I want to find the minimum salary for this city, so minifs. And I want to make sure the minimum range is the salary, the cleaned version of the salary. And the criteria again is that it's a yearly salary, and that's true. And also that the city is Monroe. There we go. Now I'm just going to copy and paste this here out, copy and paste the text. And what I want to do is get the average, and I can very easily just change that from a minifs function to an average ifs function and get the average yearly salary. And again, can do some cleaning to make sure that it's easy to read. Now that's just one city, but if I want to do it for all of the cities, then what I can do is I can use this unique function again, go to the clean table and get, oops, I closed that out before I wanted to, and get all the unique cities. So here I've got a list of all the unique cities, and as you can tell, we didn't properly clean the data, but it's fine anyway, because it was a quick analysis and we can always do some more cleaning when we have more time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and bring all of these calculations down to cover the rest of these cities. And to do that, again, I'm going to select, hold shift and select all of the calculated cells, and then double tap this green square so that I can get it to auto fill all of the rows below it. Now this will take some time, but here we go. Okay, beautiful. So now I can see quick analysis of all of these different statistics for all of the different cities that we've got in the data set. And what I'm gonna do is there are lots of numbers in here, it's quite messy. So the first thing I'm gonna do is get rid of all of these divided by 0 errors. And I'm gonna use the if error function that I used earlier. And the first thing is the value that you want by for normal uses, and the next part of the function is what you want it to be replaced by, and I want it to be replaced by an empty text field. And what I'm going to do is double tap to fill that out throughout all the rest of the rows, and as you can see, it's cleaned up that formula nicely. Now, there are hundreds of cities, and it's quite a big table, so it'd be quite hard for someone to just look at that table and identify like trends in the table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all the data in this job count column, and I'm going to do some conditional formatting on it. So if I press Control, Shift, and down, I can select all of the values in this column. I'm going to scroll all the way up just so you can see exactly how many there are. It's pretty huge. But yeah, going to do some conditional formatting to better visualize it. So I'm going to click this conditional formatting button, which is in the on the Home tab. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the cities with the top 10 job counts by clicking on that. And here I can basically choose exactly how many of the top I want. So if I want to do top 15, I can do that, and you can see it automatically filling out. And I can also choose how I want it to be formatted, and I can customize this formatting however I want. I'm just going to go for the default one. Click green here. Here I can see all the top 10 cities by job count are in green. Similarly, I can do some analysis on this yearly salary count column. Scroll all the way up, and I can do some conditional formatting to select. I'm going to pick color scales, and what this will do is it'll apply a color gradient, so the data at the top of the range will be one color, while the data at the bottom of the range will be another color. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a green to white one. Actually, I'll do red to white. So here you can see the larger numbers are red, while the smaller numbers are white. And I can apply this to every single column. I'm just going to be lazy and click the D here to highlight the whole column. And then what I want to do is I want to highlight anything that is less than, I'm going to say less than 25,000. Going to make it yellow. Okay, anything that's empty or less than 25,000 is now yellow. And I can do that again with the average yearly salaries as well. There are a huge number of different ways that you can do conditional formatting. I won't go into it because it's just an introduction, but if you wanted, you could make custom rules using formulas, and there are a load of different options that you can play around with. I've now shown you basically a full range of functions and tools that you can use when editing data and playing around with data in Excel. Really, when you get data, the best thing to do is do what we did, where you have a quick look at all the data, get a quick count of the number of nulls, the number of unique values, and look at how messy your data is so that you can work out what kind of cleaning you want to do, and also what columns have useful information in them. And from there, you can do some cleaning and using a range of different functions, get the outcomes that you want. You can also very easily get a nice list of all the unique values in a city, or sorry, in a table column, and run some analysis over all of those values. There are a load of different other statistics that you can find. And I think when it comes to Excel, the most important thing is to just Google Google your problem and Google what kind of information you're trying to get, and there will be someone out there who has had the same challenge and will have already written out a nice solution for it. Thank you for listening. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn or to ask any questions about this session, and I'll be happy to help you. Thank you.